Okay. Let me start by saying that this is my second trip to Mauritius. I was here about 18 years ago, and I can not remember exactly where I stayed, what I did, but I do know this. From what I've seen in the last 3 days, there are more cars and more people than there were 18 years ago. So you're right in sync with the rest of the advanced world, I suppose. I'm assuming, and this was verified by Ashraf, that you are not students, you are business people. Am I right on that? Because this week I'm giving 8 different presentations, sometimes to students, sometimes to corporate people, sometimes to government agencies. It's quite confusing. So I want the right PowerPoint program up here for you. Okay. Let me mention just a word or two about my business. We started 30 years ago, and in the 30 years we've now, I'm proud to say that we've trained a little over 6 million people. To be fair, 2 million of those have come through one client. We developed the entrepreneur education programs for the Junior Achievement of the Worldwide Junior Achievement Organization, and they're training of us 500,000 kids a year. These are high school, secondary students. So in the normal business, about 4 million people plus all those school children. We teach in 9 languages. We have, I believe, 23 international partners around the world. We used to have our own offices, and I realized that was too slow a way to grow, so I switched to, these are like distributors or franchisees that teach the programs for us. Some of these we've had for 25 years. The man in Brazil, who I cannot get on the phone this week. You know why? He's not available. But anyway, we have these affiliates around the world teaching. And the reason we're able to have such an international business activity is that entrepreneurship, as you can imagine, is quite universal. This is one of those topics that is popular in China, Russia, Brazil, Mauritius, US, I mean around the world. Right? This is not something culturally defined as unique to 1 or 2 countries. So in that sense, we have 3 important markets or applications for our work. Number 1, and it's still 70% of our business, is corporations, large companies like Coca-Cola, American Express, IBM, and so on. They use our training. We call it corporate entrepreneurship. We have a wonderful training program. It's workbook and so on. That the idea is that large corporations who see themselves declining, and slowing down, as they get bigger and bigger, they become more and more bureaucratic. They want their middle managers and perhaps upper managers to behave in a more entrepreneurial way in the business. Keep the business alive, keep it moving, come up with new ideas, new products, and so on, be more innovative and so on. So believe it or not, large corporations are big users of our entrepreneurship training inside the company. Our first client was IBM, and they're still a client today, so we're proud of those things. Number 2, government was mentioned, and about 15 years ago, we began to get some inquiries from government agencies, economic development agencies of governments. The first one was New York City, actually, and they became, at the same time, quite interested in applying government resources, funding, expertise, whatever, to helping to create more small business and more entrepreneurs, to create what I call now creating a more entrepreneurial economy. So government has become a really important part of our business today. Working with governments to help train and develop entrepreneurs, primarily in areas of high unemployment and in poorer countries, actually. I wouldn't call New York City a poor country, but it's they were the first client we had in this regard. Okay, to me personally, this is the work I enjoy the most these days. It's the chance to actually change people's lives and help lift people out of poverty and so on. This is an important application of entrepreneurship. Number 3, the typical, the classic definition, young people, middle-aged people, young people who want to start their own business, individual entrepreneurs. We do not offer seminars in a public way for people to come in, but we do teach a lot through universities. And it's through the universities, sometimes the business school, sometimes another part of the university. We teach young people our course in how to become an entrepreneur. So this is our background. Let me start off with our definition. I suppose entrepreneurship is one of those topics where everyone has their own definition of what it is and so on. What I decided 30 years ago was that the best way to define entrepreneurship was to study and meet and talk to a lot of great entrepreneurs and see exactly what they did to start their businesses. So the way we define entrepreneurship, which I will do this morning with you, is they are the practices of great entrepreneurs as we've observed them. They're exactly what you ask yourself, what did Steve Jobs actually do to start Apple Computer and grow it? What did Walt Disney do? What are the actual things they did to create these great companies? And the one thing we've learned, with all due respect to Ashraf and any academic institution, they didn't go to business school, all right? So I'm a product of business school myself, so this is a cross we all have to bear, all right? Anyway, and on that theme, we start all of our seminars, and I thought this would be just good to show you. We ask all of our students, whether they're corporate executives or whatever, if you were going to leave your current job and go tomorrow and begin for the first time to become an entrepreneur, start a small business, what are the 3 or 4 most important things you would have to do to become successful? This is an important question. If you don't know the answer to this question, you're sunk. In other words, you're shooting in the dark. My experience is most people have some difficulty with this question. And that's why teaching entrepreneurship in a training setting actually, I think, can be quite useful. So as we go through the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to cover this, of course. But just remember, if your child or if your children come to you and say, oh, you're in business, you must know, what would I have to do to become the next entrepreneur of Mauritius, the successful entrepreneur? What do I have to do? Okay? Yeah. The high growth practices of great entrepreneurs, what we're talking about. As I said earlier, the nice thing about entrepreneurship is it is so global. I'm very proud of the fact that all 4 of my books have been published in China, in Chinese. Right? This one was actually on the bestseller list about 5 years ago in China. And I went to Beijing to meet with the publisher. We did some promotion of the book in China. And I was so proud of myself. I finally had a bestseller in China. And the editor of the publishing company, Chinese woman, she said, don't feel too proud of yourself. Any book in China with the word entrepreneur on the cover will become a bestseller these days. Right? So, okay, fine. So she took me down a notch. Maybe you've heard of the great 20th century guru of management, Dr. Drucker. I was giving this speech in Taiwan, actually, about 15, 20 years ago, a speech, and Dr. Drucker was sitting in the front row. And of course, I tend to make jokes about MBAs and business schools and so on. And of course, he is the father of modern management science. He's the world's expert. He died 6 years ago. He was the #1 expert in the world, so I was afraid I didn't want to insult him, you see. Amazingly, when he got up to give his speech at lunch, I think it was lunchtime, his opening comment was, bigger is better turned out to be another 20th century myth, and Larry has described why. And what Dr. Drucker, the famous, I've always been pleased that he said that instead of saying this guy's an idiot. What he was talking about was this. This is the kind of the basis of my own research. We call it the life cycle of companies, and it's how I began to discover what entrepreneurs do. All organizations have a particular life cycle, And they go through something like these 4 phases. Now, you're in business, so identify where you are yourselves right now. There is obviously is a startup phase for every business. In that startup phase, if you've ever been in the startup of a business, a new business, you might remember that it was quite an exciting time. There's something special and quite exciting about trying to do something new. Coming up with a product or service, offering it for the first time, scared to death you're going to run out of money every month, and so on. It's quite an exciting time, and typically we would have 1 to 5 people in the startup team, and we know from the statistics that roughly 2 out of 3 startups fail. 1 out of 3 goes on for a certain number of years to be successful. And the number 1 reason for failure of the startups, of course, is not lack of money. It's not even lack of management know-how. It's that they haven't been able to come up with a product that anybody will buy. You know, that's number 1 reason, right, for failure. I mean, it's common sense, you know. But if you're lucky enough and you come up with a product that is good, the next Apple computer or whatever your business is, right, you start to grow. And as the years go by, you begin to pick up growth, and most companies go into a phase of high growth, of good growth. 10, 20, in some companies even 30% growth per year. Today, it's unbelievable what's happening to some of the IT companies that are coming along today. You know, this company, Tumblr, was sold for $1 billion, has 11 employees. It's unbelievable, you know? I don't even think that's a company, it's just kind of an idea. But anyway, you go to phase 2, high growth. This is also an exciting time in a business. Everyone wants your product or service. You can't produce it fast enough, you grow and you grow and you grow, right? And of course, there's a reckoning day. If you grow 20% for 20 or 30 years, what happens to the organization? One thing for sure, you're going to get big. You have to. It's arithmetic, you get bigger. So here, you used to have, say, 5 people, now you've got 500. And you begin to notice, after about 30 years, in this time frame, you begin to notice things in this company are slowing down. We used to make decisions here in a matter of hours. See, if I wanted to spend $100 to go fix something in the beginning, I would go ask maybe the top entrepreneur and say, can I do this or not? He would say yes or no, decision making. Right? Today, if I'm a middle manager and I want to spend $100, I need 3 committees to examine it and analyze it and 6 vice presidents to approve it. It goes on forever. You may not get an answer for 3 months. By the time you get the answer, the need is gone anyway. See? So also we noticed that in the old days, we knew everybody's name. All 5 of us. We knew each other, or all 10 of us, okay? Today, we have to have a giant HR department. Is it HR? I don't want to step on any toes here, right? But HR is one of those pieces of the big bureaucracy, right, that just comes along to handle the size. We need HR to make sure we have good personnel policies and so on. The thing I learned about HR and finance, the thing similar about finance and HR departments is they both love to write policy books. Right? This seems to be the Bible of their business, right? And so you end up with these large policy manuals on HR, how to hire people, how to train them, how to talk to them, how to fire them, and so on. You see? All kinds of procedures about HR. Same with the finance people, you know? How to allocate, how to budget, how to do this, you know. So you're running the business with these big books now, okay? So at this stage, right here, at about 30 years of age, really something quite important is happening to the business. And you're reaching really a critical time in the history of the business. critical mass, so to speak. And I've observed, we've observed a couple of really important things are happening. Number one, as I said, you're beginning to slow down. You used to be growing at 20%, now you're lucky to grow at 2%. Or maybe you're even losing a bit of market share and so on. Yeah. Secondly, the top team, this entrepreneurial team 30 years ago, they're now 60 years old. It's time to check out. They want to go to Hawaii, or where do you go here? Stay here, I guess. They want to go to the beach, you see? And here's an interesting thing I've observed over all my research. I've never seen an entrepreneur who replaced himself with another entrepreneur. They always replace themselves with this bottomless pit of MBAs available, you see? So what you have is a double whammy. You have a growing bureaucracy slowing down, run by a bunch of MBAs with their charts and strategies and theories, okay? This is a recipe for disaster, okay? I don't mean to step on anybody's feet. I have an MBA, very proud of it, very nice. It didn't do one damn thing for me to start it, right? Keep it growing. All right. So at this stage, if you can't, and this is also the time when the big companies, the IBMs of the world, and the IBMs of Mauritius, I'm sure, are the same, time to call in those management consultants. We're slowing down. We better get some help here. What to do? As a CEO, I'm making $5 million a year, but I don't know what to do. So I got to hire some 27-year-old consultants to come in and tell me what to do from McKinsey. So we call up McKinsey, and I can tell you when I went to Harvard Business School. When I got out of Harvard, like most Harvard graduates, we only took two kinds of jobs out of Harvard. We either became investment bankers or consultants. That's all we did. Right? None of us took an honest job. Right? And having been a consultant, I'll tell you the honest to goodness truth. When we went into a big company on an assignment, we almost always made the situation worse. We had no idea why they weren't growing anymore. But we were paid to come up with some suggestions. Right? And we did that. We come up with suggestions. None of them worked. Right? Because we were all talking about you need to improve your long-range planning process. You need to improve your financial controls or your HR policy, whatever. None of those were the problem. The problem was pretty simple, but we couldn't see it. They were losing this. They were losing this passion and this entrepreneurial drive to create new products and find new customers and so on. So they were becoming a bureaucracy. Simple. Anyway, if most companies cannot resolve this, so if you can't fix this, you're in phase 3. If you can't fix this, you go to phase 4. Survival and death. Now, the statistics are very clear on this sort of thing. If you look at the list of the 100 biggest companies in the United States in the year 1900, by the year 2000, how many were still existing? 16. So we have an 84% failure rate of the giant companies. So this life cycle seems to be real. Now, it's actually even more real today. It's increasing velocity. But here you are.